Welcome to Shrinks on Tap. We invite you to grab a chair, a drink, and let's talk. This is our inaugural episode, and I want to introduce myself. I'm Dr. Lauren Fisher.
I am Dr. Eleni Boosalis.
And we're the co-owners of a holistic psychotherapy practice named Delray Psych and Wellness on the East Coast and Anacortes Psych and Wellness on the West Coast. We're also situated in our own Holistic Wellness Junction, a center here in Alexandria, Virginia. Okay, what's on tap today?
Yes, we're going to introduce ourselves and why we're here.
Yeah.
Why are we here?
And the ingredients.
So the key ingredients to personal and professional transformation. We're going to tell our story, but that's basically what's guiding this. What are the key ingredients to achieving personal and professional transformation?
And we thought that would be important today because, we want to share how we got here and what the intention of our podcast is through a little bit of storytelling. But before we do that, we are Shrinks on Tap. So we're going to talk about our drink. So for our first episode, we decided to use Natty Bombo, an organic, bubbly, which they say is bold, organic, a little unfiltered, and real, just like us.
That's right.
But we're drinking out of the glasses that were given to us when we bought our wellness center. The center we never thought we were ever going to buy because that wasn't part of our plan. So cheers to a new chapter. Yep. And we're going to talk a little bit about how life leads you in directions you don't always expect. Like, for example, when you started, your plan was to work with murderers.
Yes. So when I started, I thought I was going to be a forensic psychologist, and I was. I worked in a state hospital with serial killers. So I thought that was going to be it. That's what I do. And after a couple of years, I realized this is not what I expected. And somebody was murdered in the hospital, one of the nurses. So I said, yeah, this is not it. So I just moved on to private practice setting. But yeah, it's interesting where you think you're going to end up and where you actually end up.
Yeah. And so, that's where we met in a private practice about 20 years ago. And for me, I always knew I wanted to be a psychologist. I wanted to help. I love people's stories. But I also went to grad school when I was 21 years old. So I knew I wanted to be, but I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do in the field of clinical psychology. So honestly, when you graduate, you take the first job you can get. And I ended up in private practice, which looked glorious at first. So I'm like, I'm going to make all this money. And that's absolutely not the truth. If you're in the field, you know it. But ended up at this group practice and happened to be in an office next to Eleni.
Yeah. And there's 20 therapists in that office. So it was pretty interesting that we ended up right next to each other.
Yeah. And I thought she was so cool. She was awakened and she's like, do you know about the power of attention? And I'm like,
manifesting.
And I'm like, I know nothing about that at all. But I was like, this sounds interesting. But she just had a really chill vibe and I liked her. But it's important for us to tell you where we started because it shaped our professional journey for sure. And we were in this large group practice all right, so the boss's Escalade that he drove had the diagnostic code for narcissism on the back. I mean,
narcissistic personality disorder, proud of it.
Who does that, right? And true to character, he put the business before the clinical. So in other words, was hiring people to make money, but at the expense of the client. And we saw really early on, I'm like, oh my God. Not only are we making no money, but there's all these therapists around here who are doing harm. And that's, if you know anything about psychology, that's our holy grail. Do no harm to the client. So it was really tough to be in this environment and see things, especially knowing the vulnerability of walking through the door if you even ever do it. The first time you walk through the door and to have a negative experience and never want to go back. So it really started bothering me, but it also was really bothering me the fact that I was working 15-hour days with commuting and making $0.
Yeah.
So
then we moved on.
Yeah. But you know what had to happen is I had to hear myself over and over and be like, oh my God, I can't believe this. I hate this. I'm stressed out. I'm 26. Is this my life? And then I was like, oh my God, I'm so tired of myself complaining, right? But I needed to get uncomfortable enough to do something. And I think that's the key thing.
Yeah, we always talk about that. We talk about how the discomfort of leaving or of your situation now. So the discomfort of leaving has to be less than the discomfort of your situation now, right? So then you decided to leave.
Yeah. I'm almost like, what am I going to do? So it kind of made sense to like, we had a good mentor and friend, Dr. Ann O'Malley and Dr. Jeanette Stewart, and they had left and they did their own practices and they were like, you can do it. And it built up connections and things of that nature. But I was like, I never planned on owning a business. But it seemed like a logical progression. So after a year of anxious studying them, and they're like, you don't need a year. But I'm like, hey, I don't know anything about business. We went to school for psychology, right? Like I took the leap, I was like, I got to do it because if I want to take control of my future, like I need to, figure out what I want to create for myself. And I did it.
And that's one of the main lessons when we talk about, how to live your most fulfilling life is push past your discomfort. There's all of these situations where you're uncomfortable, but you're just like, I don't want to move. I don't want to move. That's too hard. That's too different. I don't know what's going to happen. It's unpredictable. But you have to just push past that discomfort and go and do it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I'm not going to make it seem like it was super easy. Like I had to learn a lot and I had great support. But I think this is where the next ingredient comes in of like intentionality. So, when I moved into my new office suite, I immediately started looking, and it was a beautiful suite, but I was like, ooh, I don't like the colors on the wall, and I started to think, okay, if I have a business, I want to really create an environment here, like always client-centered. The client's always going to be number one, right? From the way I operate to their experience. But I started thinking about like, how do I want them to feel when they walk in the door, right? What kind of services do I want to give? And also, what services are in alignment with who I am? Because at that time, I was doing a lot of psych assessment, and I did enjoy that to some degree. I loved helping people figure out what the issue was and helping them set forth on a treatment course. But at the time, I didn't realize how much I didn't love pathologizing. I can say it now, but I couldn't identify it then. And so I started steering away from assessment, started getting into therapy. And I had been terrified of therapy, if I can be honest. I was doing therapy with kids, and that was not a fit. So the intentionality, but starting to tap into intuition, like what is in alignment with me? And when I started working with adults and doing therapy, in particular, mindfulness and a mind-body approach, like it started to be like, okay, I feel at ease in the room because I started to find the modalities that worked for me as well as sort of the setting. So
and that's one of the main ingredients is feeling through it rather than just thinking through it, where people think, okay, I'm going to put down these lists and which way should I go and what should I do? And let's compare the list and let's compare the numbers and let's project what's going to happen in 5 years. I think people miss the feeling aspect of it. And sometimes the feeling aspect of it makes no sense, right? It's just like, this is what I'm going to do. I know it's right. I feel it's right. That is basically what intuition is. So like, how do we marry the two? Like, how do we go through our lives without being in imbalance and not just thinking things through, but also feeling things through? And you can't just walk around feeling everything, you're just like floating through life, doing everything you feel. But I think that component is missing from a lot of people's lives. And it's one of the reasons why they don't feel fulfilled and they don't feel that they're in flow or in joy or in their passion because they're not using that intuition. They're not using that feeling to guide them into where they're supposed to be.
Yeah. And if I'm honest, like, because we've evolved so much over the years, like, I can't say I was tuning into my intuition then. I probably was making that decision first out of fear, like fear I'm going to be stuck in this bad situation for the rest of my life, right? So, but now in hindsight, like when you say that, I remember sitting down that first day, the first client in my new office, and just feeling like, oh, this feels right. And like feeling so grateful that I was like, oh, this is a place I'm going to love coming to work.
Yes. And sometimes people say, well, how do I find out what I really want, what really fulfills me? I don't know what that is. So we joke about that, first, maybe you let what you don't want guide you, right? I know I don't want this, right? Like, I know I don't want to be in a place like with the serial killers where it smelled really bad and I never felt safe. I know I want to go somewhere where I feel safe and it smells nice. Like, those are the first two things. I also wanted to, I want to enjoy the people I work with. I want to have freedom of, expressing my creativity, whatever that is. But sometimes it's easier to figure out what you want by figuring out what you don't want.
Yeah, for sure. Well said.
Yeah. So you make you create the office, right?
Yeah. And also, I got to add in that narcissist, when I told him I'm leaving, he's like, you'll never make it. I'm like, thank you for saying that, because I'm definitely going to make it now. I love when a man or anyone tells me I can't do something. So that fueled a little bit of the grit and moving forward. But once I saw it was going well, I'm like, hey, you over there, you got to come too.
Oh, yes. And then I was like, what do you mean? How am I going to do this? So then thankfully you paved the way, and then I joined into the office, and that was like 15 years ago. Yeah.
So we were working these solo practices, living a good life, right? And then you'd have a baby, come back, leave, come back.
Have another baby, come back.
I was like, is she going to come back? I don't know. She came back, and we were having a great time. But then, what happened was this desire for both of us to be closer to home. We were commuting over an hour. And, what's most important always is family, our friends, our connections. And I was tired of being a visitor in my town. So,
yeah. So then we thought, okay, I was like, we're going to manifest the office that's, 2 miles from our home, whatever, so that it's not going to be stressful.
Yeah.
And, that's the other part, is when we're talking about the ingredients, is set your intention, set your vision, and then release control. Like, you're visualizing what you want, you expect it, it's going to happen, you're working towards it, and you're not controlling every aspect of it. You're just believing it's coming and you're looking for it. So with my third pregnancy, my doula at the time, I said to her, yeah, my partner and I are looking for an office. And she said, oh, there's one available in my building. And that was that. And we ended up there in Del Rey.
Yeah, which, by the way, is also close to where I live. And I was like, oh, I don't know. Do I want to work where my clients are? Because, just some of the clientele we used to work before, it just felt like it needed to be in big separation. It felt like that time. But then I'm like, well, I could walk to work. I still don't walk, but I could. And oh my God, thank goodness. It was one of the best decisions we made. But during this time, I want to say we also were evolving as therapists, because earlier on, I was just doing talk therapy. And then with my own kind of awakening, getting into mindfulness, I started being like, wow, people can have insight into why things are happening or why trauma's affected them, but they're still not changing, right? Like the way they feel or their nervous systems. And I'm like, okay, I feel kind of stuck,
Yeah, and we kept searching, right? We kept just adding to our toolkit, doing mindfulness groups, doing hypnosis, doing Reiki energy healing. How are we going to introduce Reiki into psychotherapy? Doing EMDR.
Essential oils, tapping. And we were kind of on the fringe back then. People were like, oh, that's kind of witchy stuff. And I'm like, I think it's just holistic. But the East Coast, everyone's uptight over here, especially in the DC area. So that was like, what? Mindfulness? Until you told them the science behind it. They're like, all right, we'll try that.
Yeah. Yes. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is also part of the authenticity. That's another one of the ingredients that we wanted to touch on. It's that, we were coming across all of these different healing modalities, and initially it was like, oh my God, is a medical community going to think we're weird?
Yeah.
Are they going to be like, oh yeah, those whatever, woo-woo people? Yeah. And we were like, you know what? This is our passion. We know this is right. We feel this is what the community needs. we know this is what's helping us heal in our own work. So if they think that we're woo or they think that we're, whatever they're going to call us, that's okay. Those are the people. We're going to attract the people that we're supposed to attract. So that's what we did.
Yeah.
And then with the ketamine, that's like a whole other, we're going to do a podcast on that, but like how that came in. But it's like you just keep looking.
Well, we keep evolving. I mean, right? The number one thing is like how do we transform? How do we help our clients transform? We know we need to be like 2 steps ahead, right? And we're all on the same journey. We're all figuring out life. We're all healing, growing, strengthening. But, yeah, it's always been driven like, how do we help people? What's the next level of helping people? And that's been the evolution, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And then, the other part where we started this, where we said, what are the ingredients for personal and professional transformation, is that we are not just one part. We are not just going to sit here and do a podcast on, well, how do you do better in your career? Because really it's all interconnected. And that's what holistic means. It's that we're not just a person that goes to do cognitive behavioral therapy to work on our thoughts. We also have other components of ourselves, other parts of ourselves. There's the mind, body, and spirit. And if these things are not aligned, not only is your career going to be impacted, but your personal life is going to be impacted. So, when people are like, I want to come in and I want to do 1 session of hypnosis, or I want to do a session of EMDR and I want you to fix this. But it's like, it's really like a scaffolding. It's like you are like a house, and you're not going to just come in and do the plumbing of a house. You have to fix the whole house, and everything has to be addressed. So that's when you think of holistic, you think of a house. That's just like a good analogy. Like you can't just fix one part of it because the rest of it isn't going to work. So what we found is the more we were healing ourselves, our trauma, our whatever the things that we are dealing with or coping with, the more aligned we were at work. And the more aligned we were at work, the more aligned we were at home. It's like one fits into the other. It's kind of like there was a book I had read a long time ago about how finances and your body and the neatness, the tidiness of your house seem to all be correlated, because it's like a holistic approach of how we are. So I think, that's like one big message.
Yeah, and it's, I can't explain it, but for sure, like our personal healing has definitely like impacted the people that like what we attract. And it's strange because I think at that point where we're starting to do our healing and evolving, we start to get people walk through the door and they're like, let's just say my life is great, but I feel unhappy, right? Or like more existential, like what is the purpose? What's it all about? And like ready to do the deeper healing. Like we can give you tips to manage anxiety and depression all day long, but what if you could resolve it, Mm-hmm. And I know that not all conditions can be resolved, but a lot of things can be healed, which is where we became trauma therapists. Just FYI, when we were in school, trauma it was probably like 1 course to 2 weeks worth of work. It wasn't really talked about because, people want to forget trauma. So, I mean, today's a whole different day, but we did become trauma therapists. 'Cause how do you not in this field?
Right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So, and then the intuition, we haven't touched on that.
Yeah. So let's say, okay, anyway, so we're evolving as therapists. We're helping people. We're finding our style. Her husband would always be like, start a group practice. I'm like, over my dead body. I'm like, we're not managing people. We came from that experience. Talk about like a trauma reaction, right? I was like, we are not going to be in that, even though I knew we could do it better. But I was like, I don't know about managing people, right? Just all these fears you have, like you don't think you're capable. And then, hired like one person, one postdoc, right? Mm-hmm. And we're like, oh, actually, we do really enjoy mentoring because we were also seeing, going back to like just therapists not being trained in an ethical or competent manner because they had shitty supervisors. So like that started to become important to us. Like, what if we can shape people from the beginning and help empower them as therapists, but also like give them a really solid, footing in the field.
Yeah. And then we hired a second person. And then once we got to the third, we're like, well, maybe.
But what did come, and here's full circle, 10 years ago, before we were like, let's do a group practice, we started to feel that intuitively, and I guess I'm just going to say it's a calling, started to feel this calling of wanting to do more as far as like getting messages to people outside the therapy room. Like I know still like, I don't know what percentage of people in the world come through the therapy room, but there's a lot of people that will never do that. And so how do we help people heal, grow, and transform in different ways? So we started thinking about, okay, workshops and seminars, maybe do YouTube videos. You always want to be on radio. We're aging ourselves. So come be on radio. This was like before podcasts, right? It was like 10 years ago for the most part. And we came up with this amazing
like workshop,
like the 3-part workshop: be free, tapping into your intuition, discarding limiting beliefs, moving past your fear. 30 hours we spent on it, put it out and no one came.
Well, one person.
Okay, one person. And you know what? We did impact her. So, but I remember feeling so disappointed, and I was like, oh. And then you're like, I want to go have another baby. And I was like, all right. But I also remember releasing this, like starting to release like, okay, maybe she and I aren't meant to go. I don't know why I always had this fear she wasn't coming back. I was probably self-protective. I'm like, I'll never see her again. She should have babies. And that wasn't fine if you did. But you came back and you're like, why don't we just buy a building and start a practice? And I'm like, what? I'm like, what do you mean?
Yeah. And then it was February 3rd and, 2018. And we were sitting in our office and she said, well, I heard that these people down the street are going to sell their building, but it's not on the market yet. I was like, let's go.
Yeah.
What do you mean? I'm like, let's go knock on the door.
Well, I want to say something before you say that, because we then decided like, okay, we want to form a group. And that's important because I think we put the intention out there. And because you're savvy with your, building stuff, you're like, well, why are we going to rent when we can just buy something? And I'm like, okay. So, but in the place that we live, there's a monopoly. We live in a great holistic health residential neighborhood of Alexandria, Virginia. But man, people own these buildings. It's hard to get. But like she said, we just kind of heard, and I was like, well, what do you think? I'm like, this person's selling. And you said,
so let's go knock on the door and ask.
I was like, what? Just knock on the door.
Yeah. So we knock on the door. So we walk over here and we knock on the door. And I kid you not, they open the door and the business is called Just Ask Publications. And I'm like, can we buy your building?
Yeah.
Are you selling your building? And they're like, well, how do you know that? It hasn't been put. We heard through the grapevine, right? But long story short, yeah, we ended up without attorneys, without real estate agents, just buying a building.
Yeah. And I said to that gentleman, I was like, listen, I said, you'll do good things for this community. Like, we have intentions to help a lot of people and just build a hub of wellness. So yeah, whatever, it happened. And all of a sudden we're like, oh shit, now
what do we do?
And we're hauling furniture from Craigslist and we got to start a group practice. But that's where it became a lot of fun. It was stressful, but we started to really sit down and we have all of these things written down on like poster board. Like, what do we want? Like, what do we want to create here for the clients, the community, but like our team?
Yes. So many vision boards that we had.
Oh my God. Which we saved because we're like, one day someone will want to see them. They probably won't, but.
Yeah. So we have all these vision boards, and the way we're thinking of it is that every day is another choice. Like, you make choices that move you closer or farther away from the outcome of your vision board. And again, you have to release how it's going to get there, but more or less operating with the intention that this is the direction we're moving in. And so, like, as I was saying about intention, it's that, people start applying to work for us. And some of these people have amazing resumes or CVs. But then you meet them and you're like, meh,
Yeah.
Or the opposite. They come in and you love them and they have no experience. And you're like, yes. So that's what I mean. It was like the feeling of it. And then now the staff that we have, it's like people we want to hang out with, right?
Yeah.
Like people we want to go on vacation with.
Yeah, so I want to say this does bug people, like, because we call ourselves intuitive entrepreneurs. Like, we knew we wanted a team, but everyone's like, where do you want to be in 2 years, 5 years, 7 years? I'm like, we don't know. We're just going to go based on how we feel. But we knew we wanted at least a few people in the beginning, and we wanted employees in particular because we wanted people. Like, a lot of times models in psychology, people are contractors or they're just sharing space. But I'm like, we want a team. We want a group of people that want to serve, first of all, the higher good, right? To help people heal, serve community, but to be part of a team where we're going to co-create, because we be remiss to say like we're the most intelligent psychologists ever. I mean, I think we're right. But like, the beauty has come from like all of the co-creation and co-training and mixing and learning from different perspectives and ages and orientations. And like, there's just an energy.
Yeah, and you feel it.
Mm-hmm.
You feel it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But I like what you said about like intuitive hiring. Like, we really want to make it was like a good fit. Like, anyone can be trained. Most people can be trained.
Yeah.
But we made a lot of decisions based on how we felt and who you were, and whether you were there to like serve the higher good, right?
Yeah. And things self-correct as well. Again, like, you don't have to control everything. People have moved on and started their own practices and or moved, and it's all been just part of it. It's not like, oh, we made a mistake or we didn't see that. If it's felt organic, right? And even if as happened with people on a couple occasions where it wasn't expected, as you move forward, then you realize like, that was like the best thing that happened when that person left. They weren't really aligning with our values and our mission and our energy anymore. And so they just kind of got filtered out, like organically. Something happens and they go. So a lot of it is also trust.
Yeah, I think that's a big thing. The trust and acceptance, like that, the failures, there are some failures, roadblocks, that like they're all part of your learning. I mean, that's a big part, right? We don't stop, we just figure out and accept like, what are we supposed to learn for this and how we move on. But that releasing the outcome is so important. That's taken a lot of training, like still working on it sometimes. But, even when we started, we thought there were a bunch of people that would come with us, and I'm like wrote them on our poster board, and like none of them came with us, and even like, right, we were flying high. Like, honestly, I mean, we're very like so grateful. Like, we love our team. We were like getting a lot of great attention in the community, and then like the pandemic hit. And I mean, you don't even know the strength of a team until you're tested. I mean, to see our therapists and what they did during that time, like not even taking a moment of time for themselves and just being there for people. And we didn't require that of them. That's what they chose. But they did. They wanted to serve people and do what they needed to do. But we were also like, oh, they're never coming back to the office, and I was having a tough time. I was like, oh, but our vision is this. Everyone in office, it's supposed to be a certain way. And I then was like, okay, let it go. Whatever's meant to be, we're still serving people. And then everyone trickled back in. Thank God. I'm very glad about that.
Releasing that it's supposed to be a certain way.
Yeah, that is so important. I think it allows the flexibility for growth, in our personal and professional lives. But we mention all that because, again, this really is the foundation of our holistic brand and this co-created community. And that's kind of how we lead to today. And I think maybe we just want to touch a bit, last thing on how we got into psychedelics, or none of this was just story, but why we started adding that into our practice as well.
Yeah. And we're going to do another podcast on this. But it was as I said before, we just kept searching for all different modalities and then stumbled upon ketamine-assisted psychotherapy. And that has just been amazing. Mm-hmm. And so I think that's probably like I said, a podcast on its own, because there's so much about why we did that and why we would add that. So
basically we started with murderers, working with murderers and assessing and pathologizing. And now we're working in a healing space with
not at all what we expected.
Yeah.
So
that's the thing. I mean, that's the kind of cool thing about life and possibilities and what could be like, and just like allowing it to like unfold, but paying attention to intuition. But the evolution, like we're transforming. Like I always say, I'm a way better therapist than I was 20 years ago. I'm going to be a way better one in 20 years from now, you know?
yeah. Yeah. So I think, that I'm thinking of one of my yoga teachers that said the root of your suffering is your resistance. And so I'm thinking that sometimes when these twists and turns of life take you in a different direction and it just feels like you're suffering, I think that's resistance, right? You're just resisting because you think it should be what it is and you think it should show up the way it shows up. But maybe it's not supposed to show up that way. Maybe you're resisting and maybe you're going to go in a much better direction than you even ever imagined you would go into.
Yeah.
Right.
And also, I just want to say, I know the reason I wanted to bring up the ketamine also was the like how important like healing in community is. That's been a big lesson in the last year. And so that also plays into how we got here today, is that like our intention is why we have a table and drinks, right? Because like in some ways, like we're just all humans going through the same experience in this journey of life. We're trying to figure it out. Sometimes we're doing great, sometimes we're not. But like, so we're like just everyone else, like evolving. But, I think the difference is we've got like 20 years of experience where we've also seen some things and what works and what doesn't work. And that's part of our mission here, is to share the knowledge, but also have conversations with people. We want to build community so that because we all heal each other in so many ways. And I think that people are craving community as well right now.
That's right. Yeah. So that's the why. That's the why we're doing this. Like seeing tens of thousands of people in the last 20 years as psychologists in many different settings with many different modalities. And it's kind of like we have the honor of carrying all these people's stories with us and all these people's healing journeys and seeing, as we do as psychologists, patterns, because a lot of them are patterns that people keep repeating. So like, why not take this opportunity to share our knowledge as psychologists and humans that are experiencing this, but in an authentic way. We want to share stories about ourselves, but, that would be applicable to you listening right now.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So in some, I mean, that's our story and that's the foundation, but we're also kind of hoping that you reflect on, what we said about alignment and intuition, and like maybe you've been just pausing to tap in your life. Like, what feels in alignment with you? Your relationships, your work, the way that you take care of yourself. Like, where is there flow and where is there resistance?
Yeah. And I ask people, instead of what do you think about that, I ask them, what do you feel about that? And then they'll answer me what they think about it. Oftentimes, right? And I'm like, no, that's not what I asked you. Yeah. So, really just shifting into that space of feeling, of intuition, of authenticity, of pushing past your discomfort, of I don't know what I don't know, of exploration, of releasing control, of resistance, and all of that together.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So we look forward to sharing more with you in future podcasts, as well as featuring some of our other team members who all have a different range of expertise. So we're hoping to not only have a variety of interesting topics, but also, as we said, community. We're looking for interaction and questions, and we'll see where it goes from there. So thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you on the next episode of Shrinks on Tap.
Bye.